I am not with the Wi-Fi. Hey Hannibal. Hey Frankie. I'm just waiting for Hannibal to join me.
Mr. Cameron, so we're all good here. Hello, good morning.
Oh, there we are. How are you?
As crazy as a horse with no neck.
Well, that's great, I guess. Well, it's good for this platform.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, let's wait for a few more people to join us. Hey Tolu and hey BC. Let's wait for a few more people to join us, and then we can be on.
Yes, ma'am. Just turn up your volume a little so I can hear you fine there. Sorry for covering the camera there. All right.
Okay.
Sorry for any background noise you may hear. We're just dealing with some groceries here. Of course, it's always something.
Oh, all right. Oh, we can't hear anything at the moment. So I guess. Hello, how are you? Yes, I guess you're all here. Well, we'll have more people, I'm sure. All right. So, Hannibal.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. To start with, I'm gonna do the same thing that I did this afternoon, which is essentially I'm gonna ask you to get our audience to know a little bit more about your work by getting straight into a poem.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that.
All right.
This was a poem that was published in an anthology called, I forgot the name of it. I know Rob's going to be so mad at me. But anyway, this is a poem published in a superhero poetry anthology, and it's called Frustration, the Gospel of Lex Luthor. I first split the atom when I was 12 years old. While waiting for my high school diploma, I proved the Hodge conjecture and devised my first weapon of mass destruction. I devised profitable patents while waiting for microwave popcorn. It's been decades since I sat in a barber's chair. My best friends are pathological psychopaths, and instead of being lauded as the finest mind humanity has ever developed, I'm considered a criminal, a deviant, a villain. My 12-year-old mind found it all so simple, never having access to Oppenheimer's notes, red hair still waiting to be born underneath my pasty chest, complicated mathematic equations like music in my mind, and I hummed as I wrote them out, sang aloud as I contained the reaction that powered the lab I had in the gardener's shed for the next 2 years. Without the shadow of that invader fluttering over my head, I could be anything. President wasn't big enough. Standing astride worlds of finance and commerce took less focus than urinating. My intellect could administrate galaxies. Power contained in my all-too-human mind meat could follow the path of 6,000 gamma waves across 7 parsecs while making myself a sandwich and solving world hunger. But I can't concentrate on curing cancer or solving any Rubik's Cube in 14 moves. I can't sit down to write all 4 symphonies I've had in my head since the night I lost my virginity. All I can do is look up at the sky and dream about the day I'll bring it down to earth. That's one.
I do love the president wasn't big enough bits.
Yeah, I took this character who was essentially a supervillain, and I like what made him that way. What created this in him? And I kind of looked at, and it was essentially a gospel of frustration, which, as African people, I'm sure we have a certain understanding of being frustrated.
Absolutely. Now, here's the thing. You are a musician and a journalist and a poet and a comic book writer. Which of these characters is most prominent for you? You know, what do you enjoy the most, or are they all equally important to you?
Well, they are all equally important, but each one feeds on each other. So, for example, my grounding in poetry, which comes from a place called the Anansi Writers Workshop here in Los Angeles, my grounding in poetry taught me that brevity is the sister of talent, and using more impact with fewer words was more important. That feeds into my comic book writing, where I have very limited spaces to write around the pictures. That feeds into my prose novels, where I have to fit a big story into whatever space I'm making it work, or a short story, which I've also been published in 2 or 3 anthologies. It also factors into journalism, into my marketing writing. Every piece of my writing is fed by my training in poetry. And all of those kind of synergize and work with each other. Professionally, I've been doing more comic book writing in the last 7 or so years since I won the Top Cow Talent Hunt. But I've still, like I said, I've been in 2 poetry anthologies since then. Rob is going to be so mad at me for forgetting, but one is Voices from Leimert Park Redux, and there was a anthology of superhero poetry, which is on my website. So I've never really walked too far away from anything. I mean, because even in DJing, even when I'm DJing a show, I'm trying to figure out how to get the most effect out of a small part of a song so I can move on to the next song.
Thank you. You are part of the Operated Network with
Yes.
5 other artists. How did you guys come about with that? How did you decide on it? How's it working for you?
Well, it's going pretty well. We started out as a group of Southerners. The southern part of the United States is a very, well, based on the times I've been able to travel to Nigeria and to Ghana, the southern part of the United States is much more close ideologically to the continent in both temperament and temperature. So my colleague Quinn McGowan, who drew this image for Project Wildfire, and we both grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. But we had never met each other until I moved out here to Los Angeles, and we met virtually over the internet. And we had just similar mores, similar ideas about collective work and responsibility, about what we call sweat equity. We both put in, and then we both get out whatever profits there are. So these kind of common ideas we shared, and we decided to hang up a shingle to put our work out to the world. And it's been pretty effective. We have what we call the George Clooney model. So the work that we do for ourselves, which is work like this Project Wildfire, we pay for with the work for hire that we do for other people. So we do one for the other companies, one for us, one for the other companies, one for us. And in doing so, that are important to us and hopefully will be important to, culturally, while, still basically trying to keep the money coming.
Cool. And how do you make it work? Because a lot of your stuff is very artistic. How do you make it work and still be able to pay bills at home and be a parent and be a husband and everything else? Like when you're like, okay, you need to put up your share of the bills and stuff. How do you all do that?
Well, with me, I like to joke that I haven't had a good night's sleep since 1979, but I am a project manager by trade. That's what my day job is. I work as a project manager for a health plan website. And I use that to manage my time. So my time is very regimented. I use my watch to remind me, oh, time to go do something, or, oh, there's a reminder to go finish something. And I keep a very regimented digital schedule. In doing so, and also in making sure I diversify my income stream. So I never trust any one thing that I'm doing to pay all the bills. I have to have money coming in here, money coming in here, money coming in here, because if, while I love my day job very much, if something goes sideways and it leaves, then I have to think, what am I going to do? If that was my only money, I'd be screwed, but it's not. So a little bit DJing here, writing comics here, getting paid for this design work over here, doing the project management day job here, selling comics here. All those things feed into a larger pot. And if I'm smart about it and I dole out those things in a very thoughtful manner, I can manage my business fairly effectively.
Fantastic. So is it only here on this continent, or do you also have this problem where you perhaps, even when you're waiting for a payment, it doesn't come when it should come? And how do you handle that?
Well, I always told people there's a difference between doing the work and selling the work. And selling the work these are 2 completely different full-time jobs. Yet, as an entrepreneur, you kind of have to do them both. What I do is, before I even start with somebody, I will start with the contract itself, and I'll say, here are the terms of payment. Here are the terms of payment if you're late. Here are the terms of suffering if I am late. Everybody takes a penalty if something goes wrong. If they continue to press and continue to press the point too far, there are legal means by which I can deal with that. But mostly I haven't had to deal with that because if I'm dealing with, say, a client in New York or a client here in Los Angeles or a client in Chicago, I have relatives and friends in those places. So worst case scenario, knock, knock, knock. There's somebody knocking on your door. Where's Hannibal's freaking money? And
I need to learn from you.
it's all a matter of making friends. So if you ever find that you have any clients in Los Angeles who are dodging you for some money, I'm happy to roll up in their house and be like, yo, fam, what we doing here? What's up? What's good?
Thank you. You see, I'm gonna remember that, and I will. Yeah, I've got your number, so yeah, I'm sorted now. Now I just need somebody in LA to give me some work.
Yeah, I'm on your side.
Right. So tell me, I was reading about your creative process that led to the making of Artifacts. Can you maybe tell the audience a little bit about that? Artifacts is a comic that you did, and it says you won some competition on that. A little bit more on that.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, when they're looking at entertainment-based pursuits, be they writing or acting or whatever, they talk about breaking in. And the way that I broke into the comic book industry was by winning this contest called the Top Cow Talent Hunt. They still run it every year. The editor, Matt Hawkins, is one of my favorite people in comics because he looks past a lot of things that a lot of white editors don't look past and looks towards merit. So the assignment was write an 8-page section of a script. I wrote the whole 22-page script because if I already know the story, why not finish it? Why not just get it all out of my head? I spent weeks studying the character. The character was supposed to be an Irish gun runner. So I talked to one of my friends who lived in Ireland for several years, who worked with me at Kaiser Permanente, and he gave me all types of specific Irish slang that would make the character significantly more authentic than anybody else who was able to write it. And finally, I injected my own sense of politics in it, my own sense of what's right. So this is a gun runner, and on the first page of the book, he's selling sniper rifles and bulletproof vests to the Nation of Islam in Chicago. He says, I understand you want to keep the streets clean. This will help you quite a bit. And they're like, well, I've never done business with a Catholic before, but this has turned out pretty well. They're like, not well enough to give you a discount. I'm going to need the full amount. So I'm able to be true to the character, but still be true to what I want to put. And to this day, people are like, I can't believe they let you put the Nation of Islam in a comic. I'm like, honestly, they didn't even notice. It was gone so quickly, they didn't even notice it.
Right. We're getting a few questions coming in. James wants to know whether you've ever met Stan Lee.
I unfortunately did not meet Stan Lee. I was on my way to meet Stan Lee, and I got sidetracked by a work thing. Get there in time, and he passed unfortunately before I got the chance to meet him. But you know, most of my friends have met him, and despite some problems with some of the business that he may have done in terms of Jack Kirby and whatnot, everybody in his later years came to really appreciate him as someone who was open to all types of people, all types of stories, all types of ideas.
Okay. Troy asks the festival question. It comes up every festival. And so we're throwing it to you. Poetry or cocaine?
Poetry, yeah.
Okay.
The question, did you say poetry or cocaine?
Yeah, poetry or cocaine?
Yeah, definitely poetry, definitely poetry.
Okay.
I'm not gonna
How many lines?
I'm not going to get arrested myself. I'm sorry?
How many lines?
I'm going to go with a Tonka at 5 lines because I have some deadlines to hit.
Okay. All right. What else do we have? I think we have Dr. Ndlovu, you got blocked by Kalaf. Why? Okay, there are a lot of trolls on this. But some comments. Right. Let me get back to this. Watson and Holmes. I enjoyed reading that, and I thought it was fascinating the way you played with that. Is that a whole series, or it's just? Did you do a one-off, or how many do you have?
It was a series that was going on from New Paradigm Studios. They did. I was issue 6 or 7, and it went to about 10 or so. The idea was basically taking the idea of Sherlock Holmes and Watson, and instead having them in London, having them in Harlem, and the race on the characters and seeing how that affected different things. So my story wanted to take them out of their comfort zone. In Harlem or in London, depending on which homes you're working with, there's always a series of informants, a network of support that he can rely upon. I took them out of that so he would have to adapt to a different environment. And in doing so, I was able to play in my own backyard. I was born in Rockford, Illinois, where the story was placed. And I was able to look at the struggles of Watson, which a lot of people, kind of think Watson's not the important character. Watson is the reason why Holmes is able to stay alive, because he's an awful person. And people would kill him if Watson weren't there to form a military man to protect him. So I looked at some of Watson's history there, and I got a lot of great character references, because I thought about who Holmes would be, and I thought he would be aware of the Sex Pistols, he'd be into Stevie Nicks, he'd be into all these things that a lot of people would say, oh, that's not a traditional thing, but for Sherlock Holmes, that'd be a very, very clear and obvious thing for him to be doing.
I absolutely love that music reference at the end.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun with that book. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. I was thinking, I wonder whether my son got it because he read it. I saw another question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. There's one question here from Degwa. As a comic book writer, what's most important to you, style or idea?
What or idea? What's the question?
Style or idea? Is that which one is more important for you?
Idea, 100% idea, because I can adapt an idea into any story. I can make it a Western, I can make it a sci-fi, I can make it a romance, well, I can't do romance. I'm terrible at writing romance. But any other style I can figure out. The idea is central because, Star Wars is basically Kurosawa, which is basically a Western. So it's all the same basic idea flipped into different styles.
Okay. Dr. Ndlovu says she needs a man with multiple streams of revenue. Are you open to taking a second wife?
My wife is a little stabby, so I'm going to go with no, I'm not going to be able to do that, but I appreciate the offer.
Sorry, Dr. Ndlovu. There is another question here from Josh. He says, do you speak any other languages aside from English?
Je parle français un peu. Mais je ne suis pas plus bien avec la langue. I can speak about enough French to get myself into trouble or get to an American embassy. That's about all I can pull off. Okay.
All right. I thought, for some reason, I thought you were about to do that polyglot thing right now when you started with Je parle la français, And I was like, okay, this is lovely.
I'm not that good. I'm not that good.
Dr. Ndlovu, you missed it. Yes, he did. He says he has been to Nigeria and Ghana. And there's a follow-up question to that on African countries you've been to. She wants to know, have any of them influenced any of your comic books?
I definitely was influenced by my time in Accra and Kumasi in Ghana, which felt, after growing up in Memphis, Accra felt so much like Memphis to me that I literally almost started to get my old Southern accent back after a while. It was only the fact that, we were working with a gentleman named Ernest who runs a company called Easy Tours GH. And that when he would speak Twi, that I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute, I'm not actually in Memphis. It just feels like Memphis, the heat and the energy of the people. And for me, the fact that I was surrounded by Black people and Black imagery everywhere. It was very, very much like being at home to me. We also got to get through Nigeria very briefly and Egypt for, I think, 2 days. We were in Egypt, but Egypt's a whole different sort of energy. Given those things going on there. But yeah, I would definitely say, especially recently, Ghana has affected not only my writing and comics, but especially my DJing. There's a song, Ghana Meets Naija, that I play a lot when I'm DJing. That is one of my favorite songs because I think it's hilarious. I've also come to enjoy a lot of work from Medical and Shatawale and WizKid. And so being able to connect with that music is now, I'm seeing little sprinkles of that come out in my comics work because I use a lot of music references in my comics. So definitely that influenced me quite a bit. And I'm looking for a day when I'll be able to get back to the comics.
Fantastic. Hopefully within the next 2 years, the skies will open up. Debo wants to know, do you feel at all connected to older comic book artists, or does that seem like a foreign world to you?
I have an understanding of the art because I've been doing comic book reviews since 2003. So I do a pretty deep analysis on things about the way an artist will depict a camera angle, or the way they'll choose to do lighting and coloring or what have you. So I've got an understanding of it. And after working very closely with my artistic partner, Quinn McGowan, who I mentioned, I've come to recognize that what I do, I don't write comics for people. I write essentially a script that is a love letter to the artist. And then the artist takes that idea and he does something to the people. So my work gets through the people through interpretation. And in understanding that, I have to be much more detailed. So like a script for a 22-page comic for me can run 60 pages, you know, and that's with hyperlink, 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 reference this, reference that. Oh, it's like this show, it looks like that, and so on and so forth. And those things are important because if I want to get as accurately as possible to them, I have to give the artist the proper tools to be able to work with. And I understand that their job is in many ways drastically different than mine, because I can pound a script in a week if I'm really pushed for it. But drawing 22 pages is going to take at least 22 days, and sometimes more than that, depending on the detail that I put in. One artist I work with on this book called Time Core for Wonderman Comics, he calls me the torturer because it's a time travel. So I'm like, and here's a dinosaur, and here's the Colosseum from Rome, and here's this other thing. And he's like, would you stop? Would you stop it? I don't.
Well, it's always fascinating to be able to get these insights from other writers, from other artists, because it's certainly, I think it's helping a lot of us who are listening on other artistic pursuits beyond perhaps maybe just writing prose or poetry. Troy, stop it. Oh, Frankie says they have a place for you in Accra. There's a whole suite available. Oh, yes, thank you. We had a bit of a network problem on my side, but yeah, I see you. I can't hear you. Can you hear him? I can't, it's not Nairobi 5G. I can't hear you. Do you want to log out and then log in again? Hannibal? Are you back? I can see you talking, but I can't hear you. And then try to have him again. Everyone, can the rest of you hear me? No, they said it's our guest who's not audible. Can the rest of you hear me? Thumbs up if you can. Wave and let me know. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's Hannibal you couldn't hear. All right, let me see. Let me get him back now again. Okay, I'm just waiting for him to join me.
Shut us down, I guess.
Oh, fantastic! I'm glad I have you back now. Yeah, I understand
I'm sorry. Yeah,
it's Trump Wi-Fi. It's not African Wi-Fi.
you know it. You know what it is.
Anyway, all right. Another question. There was a question here whether how the coronavirus pandemic and Black Lives Matter has it affected your work at all? How has it affected your creative process, your writing, your everything that you're doing now?
And I apologize because there's a trash truck picking up trash outside, so I apologize for the noise there. But Black Lives Matter has affected my work throughout because I work as the co-head of the communications team for Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, and I've been effectively organizing since college. So in different ways and different things I've been doing. So that's, gosh, more than 20 years now. So there's always been a sense of a commonality in my work for Black people. So as I said, my experiences with my one good brother Chijioke from Nigeria and my one good brother Quinn from Memphis are similar because we are similar, because we all have the things that bind us together are greater than the things that are different about us. And I've always considered that important. So okay, I thought you lost my audio. Anyway, so COVID-19 has shut down basically conventions. So I can't go to San Diego Comic-Con, I can't go to WonderCon, I can't go to the normal places I would do to promote and build my business because a lot of the work for hire I've done has come from being seen at conventions. So that's problematic. It's pushed back the release of the book MPLS Sound, which I have coming out from Humanoids, co-written by Joe Illidge, which is about Minneapolis and Prince in 1983 or so. That won't be out until April 2021 when it was supposed to come out this fall. So there's all kind of business challenges that COVID have put forth. But, you know, it's more important for me to protect my family. My wife is immunocompromised, and it's more important for me to take care of what I have going on here than to, you know, think about going out there and risking not only my life, but the life of other people. I have to be considerate of that, and I have to be mindful of that in my mind. Okay.
Yeah, we just have a comment about the Wi-Fi being a bit colonial, and we certainly hope that it stops. But
I agree.
You mentioned that you've been to Nigeria, and there was a question from BC, and she wanted to know Ghanaian jollof or Nigerian jollof. This is another question.
Y'all are not gonna get me killed on this. I am not gonna play these games with you. You know what I'm gonna say? They're both.
And listen, this is a safe space.
Nice try. Y'all not gonna get me on this.
Right. Okay. And Frankie, who's a Nigerian staying in Ghana, says you've got a place available in Ghana anytime you decide you want to go back to Accra. So there's that.
I appreciate that. In the DMs, I might take you up on it.
And he'll even make you Nigerian jollof in Ghana.
I don't know if that's allowed due to local regulations, whatever. We'll figure that.
Right. I know there were a few questions before we disconnected a little bit. Before, are there any other questions coming in, folks?
I saw
and
that
no choice.
Somebody asked me DC or Marvel, and my answer there is Milestone. It's always going to be Milestone. So that if I get the choice.
Okay, I was actually about to ask you that. Okay, your favorite comic book that you didn't create.
My favorite comic book that I didn't create. I would have to say my favorite over years that I didn't create is probably Black Panther by Christopher Priest. His work there created the framework for the movie that we saw and the amazing wonders that we saw. He invented the Dora Milaje. He invented a lot of those things, and he incorporated using Hausa and using different elements of true African culture, a character that Don McGregor and Stan Lee, for all their good intentions, did not know and did not research. So I really appreciate that work. That's my favorite work that I didn't personally make.
And what is your favorite character that you have created?
That I have personally created? My favorite character I've personally created is there's a villain that's coming up for this guy for Project Wildfire. There's a villain coming up called Schrodinger's Hepcat, and he's a brother who gets trapped in an accident, and it throws him into the sixth dimension, which is, you know, all kind of crazy stuff. And he spends, for him, for everybody around him, he's gone for about 20 minutes. But for him, he's gone for 20,000 years. And he goes completely insane and develops these ridiculous powers that can manipulate time and matter and space and whatnot. And but he's a jazz head. So he's always like, bop, 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 jazz in his head. And he's less a villain and more a problem to address. He's more like a weather system that moves through and knocks a bunch of stuff down. So he'll turn a freeway into pudding just because, you know, why not? Why wouldn't he do that? And just the complete, both the power and the randomness of the character really speak to me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Also, you just mentioned Black Panther, and I'm more of a Killmonger myself. I keep thinking that he just really needs a film on his own, you know? And
well, interested then. One of my good friends, Brian Edward Hill, wrote a Killmonger miniseries that took him from the time he was kidnapped up until the time when he essentially enters back into Black Panther's life. And it's really, really good. It's written by a Black man, Brian Edward Hill, and it's really, really good from Marvel Comics. I'll mostly recommend stuff that's not, you know, of our own, but Brian is one of us, and he wrote an amazing, thoughtful work. As much as I appreciate what Killmonger said, I'm on Nakia's side. You know, Nakia wouldn't have to shoot the person she loves to, you know, make a point. You know,
where would one get this work of Brian's?
You'll be able to find it on Comixology or on Amazon.com. It's called Killmonger, and you'll be able to look Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, Edward Hill is his name. Great guy.
Okay. Let me just write that down.
I think you'll enjoy it.
And BC would like to know, if you work as a comic character, which would you be?
There's a character called Black Adam from DC Comics who is empowered by the ancient Egyptian gods. I practice ancient Egyptian spirituality, so to me that spoke to me. And he's powerful enough to make Superman flinch. He's powerful enough to make like God shudder. And that's, if I was anybody, I would be Black Adam.
Mm-hmm. Troy would like to know, is there any African poets that you've read? And if so, which ones do you like?
I mostly read more of the nonfiction and more like I read like Cheikh Anta Diop, and I read things like that. So I didn't really get into poetry while I was there. I was more into the music because it was available. It was easy to find. But I do have. I've been trying to figure out how to read poetry in French because there was a Senegalese book of poetry I got that I haven't been able to understand yet because I'm not that good in French. So I'm trying to figure out how to get that together in the scant seconds that I have between all the other things that I mentioned I have going on.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good way to learn French. That's an inspiring way to learn French. What is the hardest thing about working for a well-known publisher? If you don't work with one, what's the hardest part about doing things yourself?
I can answer both of those questions. The hardest thing about working for a well-known publisher is that they have a machine that is built that has nothing to do with you. And if you don't know the specific rules of that machine, if you don't know the specific politics of the people in that machine, then it can be difficult to manipulate the system to get to what you want, to get to the product that you want and what you want to put out. That is even more enhanced if you're dealing with what's called a licensed property, like a Star Wars or Transformers, because you have to go through not only your editor's approval, but the licensee's approval and possibly merchandising approval and other things too. So that's a whole shenanigans. When you're working by yourself, the most difficult thing to do is to be able to make high quality work and sell it effectively, because those are two drastically different jobs. And I'm very good, I believe, at making things, and I'm okay at selling. You know, if I stop making things, I could be better selling. And if I stop selling things, I could be amazeballs at making them. But we got to be who we are. So.
Okay, so now a follow-up question from me. We just recently, like a week or so, 2 weeks ago, we had the Twitter trend publishing paid me. Is this only like in your Yeah, which was started by Tochi, which was lovely. Is this only
Yeah.
is this a problem only in novels and big publishing, or is this also a problem in like comic book writing and other works where you do some writing, maybe like writing for film or whatever? Is it across the board?
It's a problem in every entertainment industry that I've been able to see, because I followed that thread very, very intensely. The most I've ever been paid for comic book writing was, I think, $75 a page, and that was because that was a rush fee because they needed something really fast, and I penalized them for it. Normally, I get about $50 a page. To find out that someone I was reading that someone who had drastically less experience than me was making $80 a page for Marvel. And I was like, okay, that's an eye opener. That's okay. That's a thing. So, you know, it's perhaps I haven't really got rate since I got in. I've been making $50 a page since I got in, basically. And I may be looking at perhaps I do need to ask for more money in terms of a lot of publishing. Yeah, I mean, from book advances. When you see the advance that I think it was Nnedi Okorafor got versus the advance that this other white writer got for a significantly less lauded and less award-winning series, it was like, what are you even talking about? That's preposterous. So, yeah, it's and I know if you ever talk to Brian Edward Hill or my friends Brandon Easton or Jeffrey Thorne, the difference they see in pay disparity in television and film writing is similar likewise.
Yeah, no, it wasn't actually Nnedi. I think it was N.K. Jemisin, where it was just like,
I apologize.
How did you pay this person this little, you know? And they've had a series.
Yeah, it's preposterous.
Okay. Dr. Ndlovu wants to know, as a comic writer, what would you like to be remembered for?
That is a fantastic question. What I would like to be remembered for is, I would like for there to be a day when there's a little kid in Kinshasa and a little kid in Memphis and a little kid, you know, in I don't know, Ontario or whatever, and they're able to read something that inspires them and makes them think that they can accomplish something that I wrote. They read a character, and that character resonates with them, because growing up in Memphis, that's what I was looking for and I didn't have. So I had to become the change that I wanted.
That is important. Another question, what kind of paper do you use?
I never use paper. I'm 100% digital. This is my iPad here, and everything that I do is done with, I use a writing software called Scrivener, which I love. And I also use something called Notebooks by Zoho. And they allow me to have stuff synchronized between my iPad and my computer and my phone and my watch. So if I'm standing in line at the grocery store, I can pound out a quick scene. Or if I'm, you know, if I'm in a staff meeting at my job and nobody's doing anything important, I can sneak out a quick scene. And that kind of synchronization has been very important to me. I've become digital native because having paper and actual physical things has been difficult for me to keep up with. I tell people, if you want me to deal with paper, it either has to spend or I have to be able to deposit it.
Right. At this point in time, I'm going to interrupt you and ask that you give us another little poem if you can. And then we'll continue with the questions.
Okay. Let's see. There's a piece that I wrote. One of my friends, this was 2012, and I was dealing with one Arabic friends who was going through some challenges, and I wrote, this is called Jangi Shah, a hymn for Afghanistan, after hearing something on KPFK and talking to one of my friends. There is no such thing as peace. Rocket-propelled grenades sit next to breakfast bowl, play with 7.62 millimeter shell casings, find blood splattered on street phase out of 7. More dead from fever and hunger, less discriminating surge. Baba fights the Americans, Kalishnikov his companion more often than Mama. Baba's Baba functions, Americans at his side more than his bride, whispered Pashto into his ear. I'm 11 years old. I've never been kissed by anyone, not a blood relative. I can make out a passage or two of scripture, no rustle of Baba's thick beard, and coarse clothes when he hugs me, taste of Mama's kadoos. 2 years ago, American soldiers left a magazine near the marketplace, kept it hidden, buried behind the house, before daring to gaze possibly smooth-skinned Westerners smiling and immodest, shaven-faced men like children, really. Women's bosoms in view. They look like they've never known bits of gravel and stew, like they eat meat less gamey than goat, and not just on special days. This cloying smell of pop isn't woven into every memory. I don't hate them, fat and godless, but I understand those who do. I'm too hungry to hate them. At night, screams hopefully far from my palate. Wonder what nights are like beyond hills of Shiroti, where baby-faced boy men sleep next to red-lipped harlots on endless pillows in safety, I'm too busy tracking down survival under unrelenting. Mama tells stories of Afghanistan, days when quiet wasn't frightening, times of Baba snorts when she's not around, says we've always been stopped on somebody's road, somewhere. Never wanted to be here, always needing to control the way. Baba says there's no such thing as peace. I don't know about any of that. I know sand and stone and gunfire, body potions, prayer and wait, even I don't believe will ever come.
Thank you very much. And maybe just the one thing that made me, the one question that came to me as I was listening to you read that is, does one need, because I often see this when I have conversations with Americans who are not Black, does one need to have the problems that you have as a Black person to understand, to be sympathetic to the problems that America causes perhaps the rest of the world, say with the wars when they go to Afghanistan or Iraq, or is it something that any person of reason can understand and can question?
If any person of reason is willing to set aside their own privileges, their own biases, their own inherent issues, then I think it's possible for anyone to not only gain an understanding, maybe not a comprehensive one, but an understanding of what's happening around the world. I didn't have to, well, let me put it this way. I talked earlier about my friend Neo from South Africa. Or maybe I have this friend named Neo Muyanga from South Africa, and he's a musician, and he's fantastic. And I didn't have to grow up where he did, making what's called a Colombian necktie, which is a gasoline-filled tire around somebody that you set on fire. I didn't have to be there to see the effects of it and to know the effects that tire and that gasoline were fueled by American interests. I know that. I know that every time I go to the store to buy food for my family, the taxes I pay are paying for drone strikes in Afghanistan to orphan people and make the people that are going to be angry at America the next day. I understand these things because I'm a reasoned person and I'm willing to look into other people and try to understand. As I said, I won't ever know the taste of sand in my soup the way that this character did in this poem, or the way that I've been hearing and talking about people from Afghanistan and different parts actually suffering through. I won't know that. I won't know what it's like to make those dirt cakes in Haiti because they don't have enough food and they're just trying to get something in their stomach. But that doesn't mean that I can't research. That doesn't mean I can't learn. That doesn't mean I can't empathize. And in my own way, try to push forth the narrative to make these things better, hopefully one day.
Fantastic. Perhaps that also comes to my follow-up question. In your opinion, do you think an artist has a duty to speak up against injustices, or, you know, we should just do art and make love and be wonderful and fantastic and write nice words? Do artists have any?
Well, in my spiritual tradition, there's something called Shai, which is destiny. And each person has their own destiny that they have to find and they have to follow and they have to seek. My destiny, as seen by my namesake, Hannibal, you know, his father made him swear undying hatred to the Romans to even bring him along when he was a kid. My destiny is to fight in a war, but my war is with words, with information, with data. And I have this responsibility. I was an artist or a cook or whatever. That is my destiny, specifically. Because of where I am now, I'm less judgmental than I was in my 20s. So I can't speak to the Shai for anybody else. I do believe that I do believe that old saying that if you're not part of the solution, you're definitely part of the problem. So I don't want to be any more part of the problem than I have to be. Like I told you, I understand where my tax dollars go. I can't stop that. I understand where, that the iPad that I work so well on, that I love so much, was made by people suffering in China. I know that, but I can't fix that. What I can do is I can be aware of it. I can bring that to light. I can do my part, try to be more conscious of how am I moving through the world next things, and try to minimize the damage and maximize the positive effect.
Okay. Another question here: when you meet someone new, do you talk about being an artist right away, or do you identify yourself as something else?
When I meet someone new, and they ask what I do, I mostly say comic book writer, because that's where most of my work is, and that's where most of my sales are right now. The business that I'm doing specifically. But I've got so many interests. One of my friends used to say all my hobbies end up turning into jobs for me, because I was learning how to DJ, and I was like, oh, this is fun, and then I started to get paid for it. And then I was learning how to do this other thing, and I was like, I was in a Nazi writers workshop doing poetry, and then all of a sudden I'm getting booked for gigs, and I'm getting paid to be in an anthology. So, with me, I consider myself a teacher. That, and I see this most clearly when I'm singing. That when I'm really singing and I can feel it go through me, it's like when you plug in a socket. It's like I'm not even a thing. That the energy comes through me and out to the world, and that's the purest, the best expression of what I'm a conduit. I'm a messenger to carry this message that I can only assume is divine from beyond out to the world as it is.
Okay. Troy says you should really seriously consider charging $100 per page instead of $50.
Well, I used to, when I worked in journalism, they did by word. They paid you by words. So the most I think I ever got paid was $1.25 word, which this is the 90s. So that was a lot of money. I know people who are $4 a word for 4,000 piece articles in the New Yorker or whatever. We are who we are. My career doesn't merit that kind of rate now, because they understand that if you put my name on that article, it's not going to get that many eyes. It's not going to get $4 a word worth of eyes. Get that? That's business. But I will be looking at my rates, and I appreciate your consideration.
Another question: do you think in pictures, words, or both?
Both. Definitely both. Whenever somebody tells me their name, I normally say, please spell that. And my brain will see the letters, type in my head, and that's how I remember them. I'll be locked in, because I'll be like, oh, their name has 7 letters, or oh, their name has 5 letters, or whatever. And that's how I'll remember them. But like, if I think of a story, I think of the motion of the scene. I think of what's a snapshot of that scene, what's a snapshot of that scene, because whether I'm doing comics or if it's ever going to be translated, those storyboards will do the same thing, to capture those snapshot special moments, and then they interpolate everything between those. So I have a little bit of both of those going in my head pretty much all the time.
Another question from Leia: how many Hannibal Lecter jokes have you had to tolerate?
Okay. I'm gonna tell you a story. So when I was growing up, there was a TV show called The A-Team, and on it there was a character named John Hannibal.
Hannibal, yes.
He said, "When a plan comes together," and I heard that about 1 billion times as a kid, about 1 billion times. So just when people start to forget that, just when that started to fade from the cultural consciousness, here comes Anthony Hopkins, and then I had to hear about the freaking fava beans nonstop. So essentially, when I see like an older white guy with white hair, I start to get a little bit angry. But so I've heard a lot, and it's very frustrating, because for me, it's the product of a limited education. When somebody says, "Oh, like the one across the Alps," I'm like, "Oh, you know something? You about it? Okay." But yeah, that's definitely a joke that I've heard, and it definitely differentiates people for me when I meet.
All right. Let me see whether we have any other questions that I might have missed. No, I haven't missed anything. I don't think. Dr. Ndovu, do you have any questions? All right. I guess we can kind of sort of wrap it up. If you would hook us up, one with another poem, and two, just let everybody on the platform know how we'd be able to get access to your work. How do we get
Okay.
your comics? How do we get collections of poetry where your anthologies, where your work is in? How do we get all that?
If you go to HannibalTabu.com, that's HANNI, B as in AL, T as in tough, A, B as in bouncy U.com, there's a store where you can find links to my prose novels, my poetry where I'm in anthology, or short story anthologies where I'm in, my comic books. You can also go to operative.net and get free weekly webcomics. That's at operative.net, O Paul, E-R-A, T as in tough, I, V as in Victor, E as in every.net. And you can find, we're wrapping up season 5 of Wildfire Wednesday, which is called Smoke on the Water right now. And we're going to be moving into season 6 later this year. I've already turned in the script for that. And the store is pretty much replicated there. So you can find all my stuff there as well as merchandise, like this shirt and stuff like that. So all that stuff is available on operative.net. And on social media, I'm at Hannibal Tabu on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, hieroglyphs, radiation from the sun, everywhere you want to be, that's the way it is. So, is that,
dude, you have Tumblr.
Huh?
You have Tumblr. You have Tumblr. I haven't seen anybody with Tumblr.
I was early on Tumblr, and I like the fact that it was like WordPress, but like it was, and I can embed it in websites. But I'm slowly distancing myself from Tumblr. I may be the last person. I don't know. I'll turn out the lights if I go. But I wanted to thank you for having me here, because this opportunity to speak to people is enormously great. I'm enormously grateful for it. As I said, the things that bind us are more important to me than the things that separate us. So I really am appreciative of this opportunity. So thank you.
Before you go, one extra question before you finish with the poem. And the question is, because one of the things that we do over here is link each other up cross languages. If you had to have your work translated into any African language, which would it be?
Based on my research, and also my last name, Tabu, is Kiswahili. I understand that Kiswahili is one of the largest adopted languages across. So if I was going to try to get the most bang for my buck, I would do that. I do know that, you know, a lot of people on the continent learn multiple languages. So luckily, the English were very busy. Of the research I've done, not because I have any specific information about, you know, places where I thought my work would be adopted. Well. Looks like there's some Swahili fans in the comments there.
Yes, they are here. Okay, so now we can hear you. All right, fantastic. Yes, please.
Okay. I'll finish with another comic book piece, poem that was done. Frustration comes up a lot in my work because, again, I'm Black in America. So this is a piece about, there's a character named Bizarro who's essentially the opposite of Superman, and he speaks backward and he does all this stuff. And every once in a while he gets hit by a ray that makes him normal. And this is a poem written from that one moment when he's hit by the ray. So, I'm a man without acceptance, ambiguity stamped into mitochondrial strands. No one suspects, but my IQ is stratospheric. My greatest joy is the symmetry of a good equation. I'm a punchline, walking through a wall when the door is right next to it. The subtlety of brush strokes and texture between yelling and making things, sometimes I catch a glimpse of beauty hundreds of miles away. I think theorems and hypotheses, but all that comes out is punching and smashing. Frustrated hate flows where I'd rather know love. Forever stymied by a brain and a mouth screaming dyslexic absurdities, frustrated by a body that breaks when my mind seeks the birth of tulip buds. I'm the superb man you didn't know. Imperfect copy, always envious of brother. All the contradictions. I can't escape prison of my chalky, brittle skin. None of my friends understand. Not the clown, not the fascist from space. Anything to raise effects war off. Hello. Hello.
Thank you so much for that, Hannibal. It has been an enriching and beautiful conversation. And yeah, thank you, everybody. And yes, Kenyans are celebrating Swahili, even though they speak pretty bad Swahili, but there we are. They're not Tanzanians. Thank you, Hannibal, and I'll catch you on the side. Everybody, we'll see you tomorrow at 12 GMT and at 18 GMT. We've got Lamel Shaw, and we also have Kola Tubo-san, and they will be with Troy Onyango moderating. Thank you again, Hannibal.
Thank you. Y'all be safe. Appreciate you.
All right, you too.